Fun Belt Podcast, another episode as we look back not only
No,
at week 3.
Tibbs. Wait a second, Tibbs. It's
What?
not another episode.
It is another episode.
I don't like the way you framed this already. We're 2 seconds in, and you're just like, this is another episode. This is a special episode. This is an unprecedented episode, and you're just another episode.
It's a very special episode.
Very special, like after-school special. So, Tibbs, I want you to start over.
It's an intervention, Jeremy.
Please, for the love of God, give this the proper context. Present the proper mood here. Come on, let's do it.
Leave it in.
Guys,
leave all this in.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. We are gathered here today to celebrate the Red Wolves dropping yet another top 25 matchup. And I will say this, though, Jeremy. Yeah. Yes, I was texting you, giving you shit about it, saying, good God, I smell another Oklahoma.
Holy shit.
But you proved me wrong.
Yeah. I was like,
but on that note, as we're on the heels of another big Red Wolf loss. I don't know what I just said there.
No.
Just know that the Warhawks will beat the Red Wolves this year. Write that down. But in the meantime, we have Dominick Crosetto. Did I say that right?
Yes, sir, you did.
I'll be damned. From the Sunbelt Syndicate, looking at all things Sunbelt, just like we do here on Funbelt Podcast. And, of course, our great esteemed Heisman Trophy voter, AP Top 25 voter, as Jeremy always deems him, the Pulitzer Prize winning Creg Stephenson from AL.com.
I cover a very small portion of the Sunbelt Conference that is within 100 miles of the Gulf of Mexico.
But it's a penetrating 100 miles.
True. Yeah, that's true.
So, guys, first of all, before we start jumping into actual Sunbelt Conference play, looking at the landscape of college football, it's been a different year. We have a continuously running clock. Games are definitely getting shorter. We have the 2-minute, don't call it a warning, that stops the play at the first half, second half. Craig, I'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts of these new rules this year in college football?
I think it's been fairly smooth as far as I can tell. I did note that make note of the fact that when you're getting balls out of bounds, obviously the clock's still running. You don't have those stoppages anymore. That was a rule last year. And then the 2-minute timeout, it kind of sneaks up on you sometimes, but teams are kind of learning how to strategize with that. Basically, using it as an extra timeout, which it is. It means you can burn one earlier in the half if you need to, because you'll still have a third one with the 2-minute timeout. So I don't know that it's made a huge difference. If it makes the games go faster, I'm all for that. But, one thing that's making the games go faster is all these blowouts with the running clock or the shortened quarters in the second half. And, it just seems like just broad impressions that not only is the gap between the P4 and the G5 getting larger, but the gap between the G5 and the FCS is just getting enormous.
Dominic, your thoughts early on the season?
Yeah, I would say, like Craig said, that it's not a huge difference on the 2-minute stoppage, but I was at that Mountaineers ECU game yesterday, and it did come into play because essentially it gave ECU 4 stoppages in order to try and get the ball back one last time. Fortunately for App State, they picked up the first down, and it didn't become as big of an issue. But that is where you could see a big change, is at the very end of the game when you could typically run out a clock. That 2-minute stoppage could prevent you from being really able to do that. So, I think it's going to, though, provide that you're never really out of it kind of feel in some of those games where otherwise you're just feeling, we wasted a timeout early on something we shouldn't have. We only have 1 or 2 left. This could give that one last possession, as we saw how important that was last night with Georgia State getting the ball back another time. Not so much the 2-minute timeout that really helped that one specifically, but it's an example of what another possession could do for a team. So I think it's a good thing in the end. And then obviously a lot of these guys have hopes and dreams to play at the next level, and it's kind of how it is in that level. So it's just more rounded into. We already got free agency now with all the movement in the portal. So now we want to just mirror the NFL game even more.
So do you think that we go to a longer quarter and just do a continuous clock? Maybe it's 4 20 minutes?
What? No. I can't see any way they're going to make the games longer. No.
Please
I can't
don't.
see that. Yeah,
I think that
please.
gives you a full 15-minute though.
I would
full
retire
15
the
minutes
next
back.
day if they made games longer. No, I think that, especially the games that are on television are plenty long. I don't think TV wants to monkey with the idea of windows bumping into each other, so to speak, where you got one game bleeding over into the next if you can avoid it. So no, I think that everybody wants things faster, and they make just as much money anyway. So what do they care?
Yeah.
Do you think the next thing is the NFL slash XFL kickoff rules coming to college football?
I don't think there's any doubt that that's going to happen. It's a safety situation, and I think that they don't want to get sued 20 years from now. So I can see that happening for sure.
Yeah. What we had, I think, 4 targeting calls in the game yesterday that I was at, and probably 2 of them were extremely questionable. So I think Craig's right. I mean, the safety factor is ultimately going to win out here in those regards. But let's talk about that a little bit. At the game, it was a stoppage for TV timeout, 3-minute plus stoppage for that. They come back from the TV timeout, and then they initiate the review. Why can't these things be done while we're waiting 3 minutes for everything else to be done? Then to come back on television and have everybody, ready for play, only to tell them, oh, hold on, we're going to review the play. So you could take away some of the length of the game by just taking out some of the boneheaded stuff where it's like, why did we wait so long to initiate the replay on that? To
Stop
check.
making sense, Dominic. That's not allowed by the NCAA rules.
Well, they can squeeze in another ad break that way. And as a wise man once said, the answer to all your questions is money. So that's what it is. That wasn't me, by the way, that said that. That was a wise man. I think it was technically Don Ohlmeyer, who used to be the Monday Night Football producer, said that. But there you go.
Makes sense.
Jeremy, you look lost.
I'm waiting for you to ask a question. I'm sitting here waiting.
I thought. I mean, usually you're just opinionated and jumping in.
I don't have. That's the thing. I have 0 opinions about the 2-minute warning or whatever that is. To me, it just it comes and goes without any consequence whatsoever. I will say, why does the halftime have to be so damn long?
Man,
why do yeah, I get it. I know why. Okay, I get it. I said, but it doesn't have to be that way. No, it doesn't have to be that way at all. But we're punished for this. If you're a fan, if you're watching the game from TV on the television, it's fine. You sit there, you switch channels when it's time out, you go get your popcorn or a beer or whatever, you sit back on the couch, fine. You don't even notice it. But when you're at the game, there is nothing worse than something exciting happening, and all of a sudden I swear that they've increased the time of these timeouts. You're just sitting there staring at the sun, watching nothing unfold.
You're staring at the sun?
Well, I know that's not healthy. It's not a healthy reaction, but I do drink
That's
a lot.
because Jeremy's passed out in the back from having too many Red Wolf Howls or whatever they are.
Now, I will tell you that there have been a couple Sunbelt games on ESPN3 that they don't have any commercials during the commercial break. I think during the South Alabama game, maybe it was. No, it wasn't South Alabama. What was it?
The ULM Jackson State was a raw feed.
Oh, and you know what? It might have been Georgia State. They just showed their cats dancing for 2.5 minutes. And for ULM, they did the same thing. It was just an aerial shot from up in the sky.
I think I'd rather have that than the same Nick Saban Home Depot commercial 40 times in 3 hours.
Yes, that's true. ESPN3 or ESPN3, ESPN
Plus
viewers. Yes, the champagne of sports networks. It's a little bit worse than for the rest of us, but good God, at least you're in the comfort of your home. But anyway, I digress. I hate talking about timeouts.
I feel like you're behind the times that you're talking about having a single game. Am I the only one that's running a quad or a 5-box on your TV?
I'm flipping through, but I don't have the quad. I don't do that.
Yeah, I have 2 TVs. Although I have DirecTV, and I had to. They brought it back yesterday, but until yesterday, for a couple of weeks, I was on YouTube with the 4 boxes. That's going to be hard to give that up when my free trial expires. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch a shitload of Sunbelt games yesterday? I watched a shitload of Sunbelt games.
I watched Troy.
Yeah.
And then bits and pieces of a few others. I have responsibilities that I have to help out with Alabama and Auburn stuff too, so I had to watch both of those.
For some reason, I was allowed to behave as a mushroom and sit on the couch and just go from one Sunbelt game to the next. It was awesome. It was a good day for me.
Is it bad? The only game I didn't watch was Georgia State Vandy.
That one's the one you didn't watch?
No, yeah, that was the one I did not watch.
It's the only good win the Sun Belt has all year.
That's true.
Well, I mean, it is. I'm not making that up.
It's true.
It is, but I want to drill into that some more there, Craig. Do you feel that the Sun Belt has fallen off the perch of being the premier G5 to the Mountain West or even the American? I mean, if you
wait a minute, hey, what about the MAC?
Yeah,
and the MAC.
MAC beat Notre Dame, and they got a win over the SEC yesterday. I mean,
yeah,
Mississippi State, but
I mean,
they have definitely not. I don't know. I mean, they definitely have not taken advantage of the opportunity. You know that if Old Dominion had been able to not fumble twice in the red zone against South Carolina, and if Texas State had held on against Arizona State, things would be looking a lot better, obviously. But yeah, there's been some monumental flops. There's no question about it. I mean, South Alabama, giving up 52 points to North Texas. What are we doing here, man? And and some others, there will be other opportunities, but App State getting 66 hung on them by an offensively challenged Clemson team. I mean, that kind of thing doesn't look good for the whole conference, obviously. But
they weren't offensively challenged that night.
Yeah, it's true. I will say, now that I look at it, that Georgia State over Vandy definitely is a great win because it's an SEC team, but the most unexpected and decisive win is probably ULM over UAB. I mean, especially when UAB kind of gave Arkansas the business yesterday for a good while.
Well, here's the thing too, Craig. I like to hear what Dominick has to say too. I think a lot of weight this year was put on Troy and South Alabama based on past years' performances.
Right.
And I think all of us were looking at, the national pundits or whatever and saying, I don't know why you're giving Troy and South Alabama so much credit. They have lost so many guys, including their head coaches. And your guys are just like, well, yeah, they did well last year, so they're going to do well this year.
Especially Troy. I've been telling anybody who would listen, they had nothing coming back. And they made a couple of plays against Iowa yesterday. I mean, they shouldn't have lost to Nevada, but the Memphis and Iowa drumming them is not a surprise at all to me. And again, South Alabama, defensively, they're really bad. I think if they had Gio Lopez, they probably would have beaten Ohio. But, it's they've taken a step back. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I agree. Coming in, I had a feeling that both South and Troy would be hurting a little bit more. JMU on the east side, I felt similarly, which it looks like they're going to be down a little bit. Gardner-Webb, where do they – somehow that team is 0-3, but they keep trying to beat people so close. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, how is this team staying with all these other teams? The other losses, about 1 point to Wofford. I know that's not a Sun Belt team or anything. It's just kind of a random team that's kind of stood out for other reasons this year. But, 0-1 against the MAC, 0-2 against the Big Ten, 0-1 against the Big 12, 0-4 versus the ACC. So a bunch of offers. The Mountain West were 1-2, so a losing record. American, we have a winning record of 6-4 as a conference, but I mean, I don't know if we're seeing what people are assuming is the top of the American just yet. Get Coastal kind of getting closely by a Temple team that I thought was truly awful. So,
and Coastal did not look good in that game. I was watching it, and Vasco's a good quarterback, but other than that, there was just a lot of sloppy play in that game. And you expect in a game against Temple that the play would be a lot crisper, and it just wasn't. I feel like I'm probably going to get drummed by somebody for saying this because I've been saying Coastal Carolina wasn't going to be good all year. Here they are 3-0. I don't think they're a legit 3-0. I'm going to just say it. They're not a legit 3-0. They're a lucky ass 3-0. There are stronger teams in the
luck is a skill.
They got a chance to get. I mean, Virginia obviously is one of the worst, power conference teams. That's who they got, and then they have an old ODU, which has been a real disappointment. I mean, they got a real shot to get to 5-0 going into that Thursday night game at JMU.
And I'm going to be screaming that entire time. It'll be like nobody listens to me. It'll be fine. I'm used to that. But all right, so is the reality then that if like South Alabama, JMU, and Troy were maybe given too much weight for carrying the conference, that maybe Georgia State and ULM should be given more credit? I mean, I think a combined record was 5-1. Am I looking at that right? I mean, ULM drumming UAB. That's pretty incredible. And then Georgia State, I know it's Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt's supposed to lose games like this and be embarrassed all the time, but that's not a bad win. Are they better than we thought they were going to be?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Probably so. I thought they were really going to struggle, just the fact that their coach got in so late. Georgia State, I mean.
Yes.
But yeah, for them to pull that one off is pretty impressive. They have open dates 2 of the next 3 weeks with Georgia Southern in the middle. So, I guess we'll see when they play the Eagles in Atlanta in about 10 days.
Yeah,
13 days, whatever it is.
Dominic, did you watch that game at all?
What?
The Georgia State Vanderbilt game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was streaming it on my way back.
What did you think of Georgia State?
What do I think?
Yeah, what did you think of them in that game?
Oh, in that game? Probably surprised a little bit offensively, because I thought that's where they've really kind of been struggling. I thought their defense against Georgia Tech was about, well, actually, I'd say they probably exceeded my expectations of what Georgia Tech had just done to FSU the week previous. I thought their lines were both dominant coming in there to play against a Georgia State team we didn't maybe know so much about, and thought that they could have gotten rolled way worse than they did in that game 1. Now they're essentially playing, in Atlanta, no matter where they would have played on the actual field. So it's essentially still like a home game. But yeah, I mean, week 2 was the one that surprised me. The Chattanooga game being close at all, I thought, what they had just experienced coming off Georgia Tech, again, that better line play than what they're going to see versus the Mocs. And then it was a close game. But again, ultimately, the W is what's the most important thing. And it was at home. So now they're staying here for a second week, and they got Vanderbilt, who's coming in hot with, I don't know if you want to say Vandy has high expectations all of a sudden. But yeah, I mean, when we saw the guys down there for media days, the defensive players, Swint and the linebackers, man, they just seemed like free spirits. Like, yeah, man, we're just going to go out there and crush it this year. And I don't know why I truly believed it, but I did. I was like, these guys are going to bring it defensively. And that's what, Swint had an amazing game last night. I don't know how he wouldn't be the Sun Belt Player of the Week with what he's done in that game specifically. But yeah, I also did not realize the quarterback transfer was a kid who had experience from Penn State and one other decent Pitt, maybe.
I know nothing about him.
Yeah, and it's like a French Canadian kid. I destroy his last name every time I try and say it. But yeah, I mean, he's got the intangible. He's 6'4", 6'5", 200+ pounds. He ran one of the touchdowns in yesterday. I've been majorly impressed with him. He hasn't gone out and totally controlled a game, I'd say, just yet, but he's getting things done. He's been a pretty good game manager, and last night was probably the closest to kind of taking over a game and making sure they won it. That last throw to the corner of the end zone was phenomenal by the wide receiver too, to get that ball within the pylon. But yeah, I was impressed with that victory, because Vanderbilt's offense kept coming right back at them every time they seemed to answer. They were answering right back. So
now, Tim, I'm sorry to interrupt, Dominic, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the Warhawks too. The Warhawks, that first game against Jackson State, right? Not Jacksonville. I always get the two confused.
Big difference.
I watched the game and I was like, okay, this looks like a team that's really prepared. I didn't see like a team that was going to be lights out, but I saw a team that everybody seemed to know what they were doing under Brian Vincent. Everybody had their role and everybody executed on that role. I was a little surprised because new coach, new personnel, whatever. you're not always going to get that. Then you get the blowout against UAB, which Creg so delicately pointed out did awfully good against Arkansas in Fayetteville. I don't know if I'm prepared to say. I feel like ULM did this last year or the year before. where
Yep.
they
Started off 2-0 last year.
Yeah, and they make you think, oh my God, does the Sun Belt now belong to the Warhawks? But is this team going to be better than we thought, Creg?
It seems like it, and don't ever underestimate the vengeance factor for Bryant Vincent in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real thing. I mean, he
That's
really
true.
he retweeted every single thing that anybody wrote about them beating UAB. I mean, it's a big deal. Obviously they're going to get a face full of Arch Manning this week, so I don't expect that to be close. But the next week going into Troy, I give them a decent shot to win at Troy.
Yeah. We start Thibs. We started the year like kind of laughing. Is ULM even going to get 2 wins? Now they've got the 2 wins.
There you go.
I told you they were.
You told us, we didn't believe you.
Yeah. Well, I think that was when we were in New Orleans waiting in line to order at that spot.
A very drunk Thibs was like, "We're gonna win 2 wins, maybe even 3," and we just laughed.
Well, I mean, the place
because
did
just because you have 2 buckets of beer doesn't mean you're drunk, Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean those $1.50 beers went pretty fast at that place. Golly, we got to go back.
Gotta love some PBR. Yeah. So you talk about that though. I mean, 42-point dogs this week for ULM at Texas is what it is. I mean, but really at the end of the day, you just want to go out there, make sure no one gets hurt. Maybe work a little bit on the offense, see what you can do about throwing the ball, because really that's one thing that ULM hasn't been able to do effectively is throw the ball. I mean, Booty has 191 yards passing through 2 games. He has not gone vertical, and the offense really hadn't either. They've been run. I don't think you're going to run it this week against Texas. You may not be able to pass it either, but it's definitely going to be a challenge. But I don't want to focus on the future. I want to focus on the past and in these first 3 weeks of the season. So we talked about Troy and how much they had lost. Worst team right now in the conference for defense. Is it also surprising that Old Dominion is the worst offense, and yet they've still been that close in these games?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, defensively, they've had a player of the week, right? And then kept it close against the South Carolina team. How many did South Carolina put up against Kentucky? And we just saw what Kentucky was able to do against Georgia last night. Those things don't always work out. We know the transitive property doesn't always compute, but early on in the season, those are kind of the things we have to live by because we haven't seen a full resume of work just yet. I mean, Grant Wilson coming back, I think we all assumed that a veteran senior leader who, I mean, he had a pretty decent season last year. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, where he ended up in kind of the quarterback rankings, but, he got it done in numerous games, beat App State there. They had a couple wins that I'd say were really surprising. I'm very shocked that the offense is kind of lax, I guess is the word I'd use so far.
I would also argue, too, that both of those teams, Old Dominion and Troy, probably played the toughest schedules so far. Old Dominion has played 2 power conference teams and a pretty good American team, East Carolina, that's going to win. Well, they're going to be a ball team probably. And then Troy, of course, has had to go to Memphis and to Iowa. Memphis is probably one of the best G5 teams in the country. And, Iowa obviously is, at least defensively is always one of the best teams in the country. So that I think it may wash out. I have seen though. I mean, just from watching Troy, I've seen all 3 of their games, and they just don't have much talent. I mean, they lost everybody. They lost, all those great players that had been there for so long. Solomon and Jabuner and Buda Jones and Caleb Bransall, and the ones that didn't graduate all went with John Summerall to Tulane or other places. So. They just don't have much there right now.
And
there were kind of grumblings out of the Monarch camp that Grant Wilson might be getting benched. Do you think that kind of rights the ship for them, or do you think that that's just kind of desperation?
I think it does. I feel like Dominick has probably paid more attention to the East than I have, but I feel like the problem is Grant Wilson. He they did win some games last year, but offensively they were ranked one of the lowest productive offenses in the Sun Belt last year. He comes back, he's a year wiser, and he still only throws like less than a handful of touchdowns. He's just not leading the team. He's not giving that great defense a chance. Now, yes, they have played some pretty good teams. They've had some good guys out there, but I just don't think Wilson's that dynamic quarterback needed. They switching at quarterback might be that sort of jumpstart they need.
When they did that yesterday, it didn't work out too well for them. But that wasn't probably the game you want to.
Yeah,
you really want to throw them to the wolves, so to speak.
Yeah, their problem is they've got 3 straight road games after their bye week, so I don't know how much better it's going to get for them.
Yeah. Any team there that you look at outside of the ones we've already talked about that maybe has kind of surprised you that you just did not see that one coming? And yes, I know ULM is there. I know that we talked about Georgia State. Anyone else that's really surprised you? And I'll kick it off, Jeremy, with your team, Arkansas State. I knew coming into the season with Jalen Rayner coming back, with Corey Rucker being there, that they were going to be a pretty good offensive show. Didn't really know what to expect out of the defense. I mean, I think that they gained a lot of respect from me out of that Michigan game, because I really expected them to just get the doors blown off of them, and it didn't happen. They were really competitive in that game through and through.
Yeah, you need to tell some Arkansas State fans that, because the Arkansas State fans went, well, let's just cash this check and nobody get hurt too. Oh, we suck because we lost to number 17 Michigan at the Big House during their homecoming.
Yeah.
Well, it's like one of those things where you can't win.
I mean, it was 28-3, and it wasn't as close as it looked. But if you can get out of there giving up 28, you've done a great thing.
And it was 21-3 until kind of near the end there. And then they start putting their 2s and 3s. Arkansas State started putting in their 2s and 3s. Got 15 points out of them, which was pretty interesting to watch. It was kind of cool. Defense did force 3 interceptions. There was a weird stat from Davis Warren, the Michigan quarterback. He didn't throw a pass that wasn't caught all game. He had something like 15 completions, 3 interceptions, and no other pass was dropped or went uncaught. So I thought that was pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's always good when a team like Arkansas State can go up to Michigan, kind of low expectations. I called it playing with big house money. There wasn't a whole lot of pressure on the team. They were pretty relaxed. Lost a running back for the season. He was kind of the 3rd string running back, it's too bad. But other than that, no real major injuries. Thibs, I heard you say something about, hey, I just don't want anybody to get hurt against Texas. Damn it, Thibs. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear we're going to beat the pants off Texas, okay?
I'll say this, Jeremy. When I saw it was a running back down for Arkansas State, I cringed because I initially thought it was Lincoln Pear. And then I remembered he wasn't even at Arkansas State.
No, it was Cedric Hawkins. He's a young kid. He'll be back. He'll be good. But yeah, I think Arkansas State's having a good year. I kind of like Georgia Southern. I know that they haven't really done a whole lot. They had a good bounce back game against an FBS team. Sunbelt does not lose to the FBS. And
FCS, yeah.
FCS, but yes.
Well, God. Well, I haven't been drinking. We don't lose to the FCS.
I assure you we lose to the FBS.
We lose to the FBS almost all the time. But,
I'll tell you, to the bad, a fan base that is starting to get disheartened is Southern Miss.
They were like that coming into the season, though.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but you would think they would have been more competitive. USF, although USF was impressive against Alabama, but they just could not stop them. Could not stop Kentucky. I saw
0, right?
What's that?
Well, Southern Miss up 14-0 to start, right? Did I see that
Something
right?
like that.
Yeah.
So.
Gave up 28, right? Unanswered after that.
Yeah. I did see a stat that Will Hall, I think he's the 11th Southern Miss coach to have coached 40 games, and his 14 wins out of those 40 are the fewest. So, it's year 4. I don't know if there's going to be a year 5. They got Jacksonville State this week, which, is struggling in their own right. They almost have to win that one, or it's going to be trouble.
Yeah. The only thing I'll touch on with Arkansas State is what happened in that first game. Why was that even close?
UCA.
Yeah, what happened?
You don't lose to the FCS.
Yeah. Boy, you talk about a screw job, man. My
Yeah.
God.
What? I don't know. I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about.
That's one of the worst overturned calls I've ever seen in my life.
Well,
I mean, I know it's 2 weeks
too damn
ago.
bad, Craig.
Yeah, I know. It's still bad. Oh my God. What are we doing?
And Central
here?
Arkansas
All right,
went
now
up in the polls after that game.
Yeah.
Just bear in mind,
Oh.
UCA is a very good FCS team. They've
It's-
been
it's-
taking care of their business. They're not like the team South Alabama put 87 points on. They actually have
Oh, brother.
good offense and good defense. But yeah, that was hard to watch. And it's like, it's a bitter in-state rivalry. I mean, there's all sorts of excuses I can give Craig. I mean, we could spend the
Yeah.
show going over that call, but I'd rather
Well,
talk more
here's
about
what
the rest of the Sun Belt.
Here's what I think. How far is it from Jonesboro to Conway?
It's about 2 hours.
Yeah, they could have protested that one and gone back and replayed it from that point. I mean, Arkansas State still had a chance to score again.
I know we
obviously,
had 3 more seconds. Yeah.
they were on the 7-yard line, so it's not like they would absolutely not have scored again. But why can't we reconvene during the bye week and play that one?
Wait,
over?
Craig, there's no
Craig.
reason to replay a game that A-State already won. I don't understand why you even bring it up.
And it's also an Arkansas State law that game has to be played at War Memorial, so they get some kind of use out of that stadium.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
What? It wasn't played at War Memorial.
No, the makeup. So the 7 seconds has to be played at War Memorial. Yeah.
Oh man, but I mean, just to touch on the East team that Jeremy brought up, I mean, Georgia Southern really has impressed me. I mean, obviously the defense took a big hit in that first game against Boise State, although Boise State is, I think Craig said earlier too, one of the best G5s,
Yes.
obviously. So the offense is where I'm impressed. I mean, JC French hasn't thrown an interception yet. A team that had come in with 2 gunslingers they had brought in through the portal the last 2 years, and you got a guy who's come in and taken better care of the ball. I thought the running back situation was going to be their strong point, as JC French was a young guy going to get his reps early part of the season. They were going to hand the ball off, and it's really been the opposite of that. In fact, I think to the point where their running game is needing some work, just like App State's running game. I mean, the O-lines are not establishing the dominance to allow their running backs to even get to the outside a lot in those games. So I'm very impressed with the wide receiver core and the quarterback position for Georgia Southern. As that defense rounds into form, they're going to put up points. So you're going to have to be able to stop them on the east side.
Dominic, I'm going to give you 3 quarterbacks that are rising in the Sun Belt, and you tell me which is the best one.
Why are you
Ethan
doing 3 like
Vasco.
that?
Well, I'm trying to do the German 3. Yeah, so
Oh,
I don't get called out by my spies. Ethan Vasco, JC French, or Gio Lopez.
I'm putting French and Lopez at the top immediately over Vasco. I think Vasco has all the tools, but I still have to see a little bit more of the throwing. The throwing mechanics to me are a little awkward. I think the Gio factor is like a Mahomes factor. I mean, he can just work magic literally with some of the stuff he's pulling off. So I'm going to put him at the top because we've seen what Mahomes has been doing in the NFL, unorthodox style wise. And I think Lopez is at that level. Obviously now you're just got to hope that he doesn't get into injury trouble, as we saw what happens to his team when, he was out versus Ohio, because he is the difference maker who can literally win a game. And I just don't know if I trust French at this point to completely take over and dominate a game. I mean, he's taking care of the ball, but I don't know if I'm ready to trust him after just 2 or 3 games here and say that I would take him 1. So I'd put Lopez at the top of that list right now.
You agree, Thibs?
Yeah, I mean, I like Gio Lopez, not only because he's a southpaw, but he gives me hope and a reason to keep cheering for the Jaguars.
They've broken your heart so many times. Why?
Well,
Why did you put yourself in this position?
And enjoy the Gio show while you can, because he ain't gonna be here next year.
Ooh,
Yeah,
breaking news from Craig Stephenson.
There are. I think Auburn is already openly coveting Gio Lopez.
Oh my God.
Well,
that's
Auburn needs a quarterback anyway, but yeah. I think if you have eligibility, Craig, Auburn's probably calling you up to see if you're interested.
Yeah,
But no, I like Gio out of those three. Second, I'm really going to go with French. I think that what he's been able to do there out of Hilton's offense and really kind of starting to make a name for himself out of the shadow there of Van Trees and I'm drawing a blank on the other guy from Tulsa that came in.
Davis Brin.
Yep.
Davis Brin. He's kind of making a name for himself out of their shadows. And unlike Gio, I think he's going to be around in Statesboro a little bit longer.
Yeah, I concur with those. What is everybody's opinion of James Madison? I have not seen 1 second of them, although I have been enjoying Signetti taking the Big Ten by storm. Jeremy, I knew you'd like that.
I love Signetti. He hates everyone. I think he's the best. He's just boring lasers, and I think he's at the Rose Bowl just trashing everybody. I love it. Here's what I thought about James Madison. James Madison was, I think, even Dominick kind of made a sort of a reference to it. They're a little bit like Troy in South Alabama to me, where everybody just, James Madison's on a roll. Signetti took like 13 James Madison guys just to Indiana. That's 13 guys. And then, the other attrition you get from just the transfer portal aging out. You bring in the new guy, which we all love, whose name suddenly escapes me. Bob
Chesney.
Yes.
Yeah. Holy Cross.
Yeah. Chesney, we met with him. I think you all talked to Chesney. He's got the right attitude. He's got the rawness to it. But man, you can't make up for all that. And yes, I know Garner Webb is Garner Webb, and Garner Webb's been playing tough. In fact, no Sunbelt team should play Garner Webb again. It should be like Ole Miss. Wake Forest just did Ole Miss, and we're not going to play again. We're done. We're finished with that. But I get that. But the old James Madison team would have crushed. Signetti would have crushed that team. Yeah. So I feel like James Madison, which by the way has one of the easiest the easiest schedules in all of FBS right now. They're lucky to have it, but I don't think that they get very far in the Sun Belt East. That's my opinion, Craig. I don't know if everybody else shares that opinion.
So, Commissioner Harper, what you're saying is that Garner Webb is banned from future football scheles.
I don't want to ever see them in the Sun Belt again.
So
we don't lose to the FCS, but we might lose to Garner Webb.
Yeah, it's like what did Pat McAfee said on Game Day a couple of weeks ago? Don't schedule anybody with the name with Dakota in the name.
Yes. Run for the hills if you see that come up.
Yeah,
and Mercer is off the table in men's basketball scheduling as well, since Absolutely. They are the men's basketball slayers. But I think James Madison is, to me, they've always been a good offensive school. This year, I feel like they're a defensive school, and the offense is really struggling. And I don't know if that's the new players, the new personnel, what exactly we're looking at there. But this defense is pretty legit. Ranked 4th right now in the Sun Belt, but their offense 12th overall in the Sun Belt, behind the likes of the Troy, the Marshall, Southern Miss even. This offense is pretty bad right now.
Well, that's funny because I didn't realize they were that high defensively, but part of that is who they've played too. Those are terrible offenses.
Very true.
Across the board. So there's that aspect. But I just thought coming into this season, obviously me being closer to the East, there's no way that defense is going to continue at the level that they played at last year. I mean, that defense was tremendous all of last season. Like you said, half of them go with Signetti, the other half are in the CFL or NFL at this point. And there was no way to me that was going to continue with what everybody they were bringing in is. And they've got Dobbs back there at the linebacker position, who was an amazing All-American, I believe, at Holy Cross, coming in, being a very big leader, a vocal leader, maybe a leader by example as well. But I'm surprised by the offense because they bring in, is it Ajayo from North Texas, who had all these yards and touchdowns as the running back. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they got the kid from UNC as the transfer. And they just can't seem to establish the running game against these teams that aren't even all that great, And so maybe it's a little bit of an O-line issue, like we've talked about with a couple other teams over here in the East at this point. So I'm very shocked at the offensive drop-off. But the defensive one, I guess it hasn't really come, like you said. They're up there near the top of the Sun Belt right now, but I'd be shocked if it stays that high with the schedule going to get a little bit tougher, certainly into conference play.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to judge on the stats right now because, like you said, teams have, we've already had 4 teams have already had a bye week, and then you've got teams that are playing. Some teams have played an FCS school, some haven't. Some have played 2 power conference schools, and some haven't. So yeah, we're going to have to wait a couple more weeks before we can get too into the stats. I could be wrong, but I don't think South Alabama's going to keep scoring 48 points a game all year.
I do.
Maybe,
No,
maybe, but I don't know.
Of the new head coaches, Creg, we probably all met them. Who was the guy that stood out to you during Sunbelt Media Days, and who's the guy that you thought, I don't know if this guy is the right fit, or if any of those were that guy?
Yeah, I'm running through it. Well, I was impressed with Dell McGee. Just he was kind of boring. But in terms of his very boring, which is like, how is this guy a great recruiter? But
that's what we were thinking. What?
In terms of being organized and having a plan, I was impressed with what he had to say. And obviously it seems like it's paid off so far. Even though James Madison's not off to a great start, I was impressed with Bob Chesney. How many? Let's see. Okay, so there's Jared Parker, Major Applewhite. Who else? Who am I missing? Oh, and Brian Vincent. Yeah. Yep. I know all of those guys, so it's a little bit different. I knew of them going in. I didn't know Parker as well as Applewhite, and Vincent used to be offensive coordinator at South Alabama, so I've known all those guys. So, but yeah, Vincent has said all the right things so far. I think Dusty would agree with that. But and obviously, destroying the team that jilted him has won him a lot of friends, I'm sure.
When we talked to Brian Vincent, I can't say I was overwhelmed by him. He was, kind of smaller than most of the guys,
Yeah, for sure.
Quiet, like almost like he came from the accounting department. Like how did this guy become a head?
Well, I think he was like an NAIA wide receiver as a player or something.
Okay, all right, yeah. I did not catch that from him. I caught he just seemed very cerebral but quiet guy. Del McGee, from what we understood, had a cold that day. Was that right, Thibs? Wasn't he like down with some sort of sickness?
That's what they said about Joe Biden during the debate.
He might have had the same thing.
It was definitely told to us that he had some kind of illness, which explains so much, because I walked away from that interview going, this is a guy that I remember at Auburn being like a great defensive back and, kind of the mouth of the secondary.
And
one of the greatest recruiters in the country, too, by reputation.
We're wondering where that attitude went. Now, Major Applewhite to me was the guy who seemed the guy that least wanted to be there.
He never wants to be anywhere like that. I'm serious. I mean, he doesn't. The shorter the better with his press conferences. He just wants to go in and study film and draw up ball plays. I mean, it's just where he is.
He seems like a guy who's much more comfortable with a whistle and a clipboard, talking to his players. We had him in front of us. He seemed very self-conscious. Like he just didn't want. I would make even the lightest joke, and he kind of looked at me like, F you. So,
I think he's kind of I think he kind of got burned. He's been burned by the media before. Some of it his own doing, but so I think he just tries to avoid human interaction as much as possible. Which it is kind of unusual though, because obviously the guy was a high-level quarterback in college, so you don't really see the charisma shine through necessarily.
He was deer in headlights.
Yeah.
And Creg, have you ever been to like SEC media days? Surely you have.
Oh, sure.
Covering Alabama.
Yeah.
How does that kind of compare to Sunbelt? And I mean, I know it's night and day, P5 versus a G. I get all that, but I mean, how is it different even about the format and kind of the openness? Because I feel like you can walk up to Commissioner Keith Gill at any time and kind of get an impromptu interview. Can you do that with Stanky?
Stanky?
No, I said Stanky.
Okay,
no, he said it right.
Eddie Stanky, you cannot do that because he's been dead since 1999. But anyway. No, you very much have to be on the schedule ahead of time to get much of anything out of those guys. And it's all very well laid out, unless you're a rights holder. Obviously, you can get whatever you want anytime you want it, but it's all very well choreographed, and they moved this guy from this table to this table to this table. Now you can, if your podcast was there and you got on the right list, you could get whoever you wanted for a few minutes at least. But in terms of just walking up to them and say, "Hey, you got a few minutes?" No, that doesn't happen. I mean,
I just assume, Craig, that Paul Feinbaum's like King Joffrey out there. Just
pretty much. I mean,
guys.
I mean, when you're given you're paying billions of dollars to broadcast their product, you kind of get what you want. But even in terms of personal interaction, like if you're covering them, I mean, it's different. Like, for example, when the thing that happened yesterday when South Alabama let New Mexico use their buses to take them part of the way for the Auburn game, for example, I texted Joel Erdman, the AD at South Alabama, and he called me back within 5 minutes. If I had done that to the AD at Alabama or Auburn, I would never have heard that.
Maybe a couple weeks later.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's just different.
Dominic, was this your first Sunbelt Media Days?
It was, yeah. First,
well, what was your impression? What did you think?
I was really impressed. I stayed within walking distance of the actual hotel itself. So I was in a hotel that wasn't quite as nice as that one, obviously. But yeah, when I walked in, I was blown away. I mean, the trophies they had set up, the way they had television screens or screens, with graphics moving or on all day. The food, I mean, the food was pretty good. Obviously appreciative of that, so we don't have to go out and grab anything ourselves. But yeah, I mean, I thought the breakout room, I guess, was closer to the front, and then you guys specifically were all kind of towards the back, actually behind the stage there.
They always put us in the corner, yeah.
Yeah.
It was different at this hotel than it was at the other hotel, because at the other hotel you kind of had to walk through Radio Row to get into the main room, or at least walk past it. So it was like you said, it was kind of harder maybe to just grab somebody because they weren't going in that room unless they had business in that room. I didn't, I saw you guys a couple of times, but I didn't see you regularly like I did in the other one where you just come up during a break and chit chat or whatever. But yeah, it was different. I think it was fine the way it was set up. I do, it's cool that it's 2 days long. I saw, the American did all 14 teams in one day this year.
Whoa.
It's just outrageous. I just can't imagine having to sit through or work through that. Yeah.
No,
that's like a 6 to 6.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like an all-day deal.
Yeah, I would not. Well, you want at least 2 days just to breathe, or just for the journalists to get enough booze in them, right? I mean, you can't do that.
That's the important thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is actually my favorite thing is when we go out with all the other media, the SITs.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, get to meet people. It's a networking thing. Yeah, no question.
So see, next year, Dominic, since you were there for the initial, we have to haze you and just leave you out of everything. So next year you'll be welcome. You can go with us.
There we go. I'd appreciate it.
You can be Jay Walker's new best friend.
I swear, though, every time I get back to the hotel, I do my little thing, putting everything away, getting out of the fancy clothes. And I'd be like, all right, where am I going to go for dinner? Where am I going to walk to? Don't have to want to get the car out. There's plenty of places in that walking area. And I'd look outside and it's downpouring. And I'm like,
yeah. The weather sucked this year.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jay, who I really like, legend in the Sun Belt, but he knows his name is Jay Walker, right? Does he know that? Jay Walker. He never occurred to you, did it? Until just now. I think about it every time I see him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm afraid if you brought that up to him, it might be a 60-minute discussion.
I was going to say, I'm sure he's heard it before. I mean, but
his favorite saying to me, because of course he'll tell old time stories, and my question to him is, Jay, were things in color when that was going on?
Yeah.
And his response is always, hey, what's the opposite of below me?
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, it's supposed to be above me. That's right.
Above me, yeah.
That's the perfect.
He
Jay
did.
Walker.
He did tell you guys some stories about a former Cajuns coach you didn't know, didn't he?
Oh,
who's now a high school coach?
I know plenty of high school coach stories.
We can't tell that on the air.
No, let's get one. Maybe
Not
we
at all.
do. I don't know. That might be the best thing that ever happened to this show.
But one other topic before we kind of wrap it up. The winds of change are blowing. And the Mountain West is losing some members to the Pac-2 to now become the Pac-8. Guys, I don't think we're going to escape this round unscathed. Who do you think could see a departure from the Sun Belt? And then who are you adding if that does happen?
I'll go first. I'll let the experts finish it off. I don't think the Sun Belt loses or gains anybody. I know that there's like some talk. There's been like, oh, Texas State, it would be a perfect addition. They wouldn't be a perfect addition. I don't know why anybody would want to join this bastardized Pac-12 anyway. It's just a logo that somebody owns, and no better broadcast rights, no better anything except for a longer travel schedule. I don't get it. I don't get the appeal of it. It seems like a marketing ploy. If I were the Mountain West, I'd be pissed off at Oregon State and Washington State for I welcome them in. Hey, I'm going to save your 2024. You can play us. We can put you on the schedule. And their response is, we're going to take your marquee brands. F those guys. That's all I got to say about Thibs.
Now, I don't mean that the Sun Belt would lose somebody to the Pac-12. I meant more to the Mountain West.
Oh,
or the American.
Or the American.
Possibly. I think the Sun Belt's going to stand pat. And the people in the Sun Belt are going to stand pat. That's my naive opinion on it.
Dominic, what do you think there?
Well, usually I get asked who I want to add to the Sun Belt. So this is definitely a different one because you got to think, unfortunately, you're still looking at FCS teams to grab up and come in if our biggest brands leave. I mean, I think the first one that you look at is the most ready with winning potential across the board in the sports spectrum, plus the financial backing is James Madison, because they're not just good at football, they're good at basketball, they're good at women's sports. So that's one that's potential. But, in a good way, I think the teams that could be ready for a jump from this conference, they're really only going to jump if it's much greater. I don't know what the possibility of a Power 4 invite for any institution in the Sun Belt actually is. I would see it's probably very minimal, at least where it stands right now. I mean, a lot of dominoes would have to fall before you start seeing, the ACC invite teams from the Sun Belt, because that means they're getting picked apart by the Big Ten and SEC, which could happen. But until those types of things do, I don't know if anybody would jump from where they're at now in the Sun Belt to the American. I just don't know what the appeal would be. I mean, maybe a 1 or 2 off school that feels like, some of the teams in the American may be more regional for them, but across the board, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of fan bases and a lot of people across this conference right now are very happy with where we're at. So hopefully we wouldn't really lose anybody. And if we did, it would be a Power 4 thing. We can say, well, of course you'll take that. And then we'd be left asking, who do we bring in? Which, you realistically have to say, if we're getting poached from the best brands, we're looking at smaller institutions to have to bring in and fill those holes. But I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, I wonder, the only school in the Sun Belt that really has any value as a TV market is Georgia State. And how much value do they really have? Probably not much. I mean, that's really the only one. Everybody else is kind of a rural, school, or at least a small town school. So that would be the only one I would think. At Texas State and James Madison, Marshall, obviously have some history. At least the other James Madison and Marshall do. So those would be the ones. So you guys wouldn't be interested in bringing back La Tech in Western Kentucky if it came to it?
Don't get too started on La Tech. I would love to have them. But, here's one that
ULM would not love to have them.
No, they would not.
No.
They would not. I would like to
Nor
have
would
the
Lafayette.
Pirates. I would like to see the East Carolina come in, because there seems to be a lot of hate there. And that's why I like Louisiana Tech. Lots of hate. Hate is good when it comes to football. So
Yes.
I do enjoy that.
Yeah, if
I
I
think
could
it's
pick
Texas
one, I would
State.
pick you.
Yeah, I think it's Texas State, though, just because they do feel like they're on an island, being the only Texas school kind of way out in the West. I mean, ULM's probably their closest rivalry, maybe Louisiana Lafayette, but that's really it. I would hate to see them go if that were the case, because they're obviously an up-and-coming football program. They've been an established great baseball program, great softball. They're getting there on the men's and women's basketball side, good Olympic sports. But then if you had to do a replacement, honestly, I think that we're looking at either bringing North Texas back in, but they don't have baseball, so they don't really fit the mold of who we would bring in. So then you're looking at maybe a Rice, or we get the CVS University of Houston Christian.
Oh God.
Okay, so you say Rice and Houston Christian are both smaller private schools, though, right?
They are.
So,
I don't know. Does the
say.
Sun Belt want a private school?
Yeah, that's
what
I would add.
what about Middle Tennessee? It gives you Nashville a little bit.
Yeah.
If we really wanted the hate, and I know it's private, but we bring in Liberty.
And Liberty's not coming to the Sun Belt. If they go anywhere, they're going up.
Because then they would have to actually compete and play teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. No, I hate Liberty with a passion, and just for that alone, I like to see them in the Sun Belt, just to have somebody to hate, which I really enjoy having. I honestly, and I don't know what, I think Thibs sometimes has a little bit of a softer reaction to this. I don't want to add any more FCS teams to the mix. I feel like CUSA is already kind of figured out that that barrel is pretty empty right now.
Yeah, what they got Kennesaw, they got Delaware, and who's the other one that's coming up?
The other thing, Missouri State.
Yeah, the other thing is too, they raised the price of that. Now it's $5 million to move up instead of $1 million. So you're probably not going to see as many jumping up now.
Yeah, and I feel like Kennesaw State got railroaded in it. They're like, well, I guess we're going to do $5 million. Yeah, I'm good.
Well, they got exactly. They jumped in right before the deadline. They were the last one that got in before they raised the price. So.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that, but
yeah.
I mean, I feel like the market's already a little diluted on the FBS, and we're already kind of bringing guys in. We got really lucky. The Sun Belt, I feel like, got really lucky bringing in guys like Appalachian State and Georgia Southern. Texas State was kind of a mixed.
There it is. There's the classic bad internet connection that we get every single time.
Yes.
Okay, because you froze on me guys earlier on. Now it's my turn. Yes.
It was like the end of MASH. It was like the end credits of MASH, where everybody's laughing and then it goes to freeze frame.
Yeah, I always do that for Chips. Chips used to.
Yeah, Chips is another one. Yeah, Chips or whatever.
But I guess what I was saying is that when we got Appalachian State and Georgia Southern, those were lucky pickups for us. When we got Texas State and Georgia State were two programs that took some time for them to catch up. I used to call them FCS mentality because they didn't put the money into it. They didn't put the effort into it. It's like they didn't realize what they needed to do. And it took them a while to get there. Now they're there. And I just don't feel like the Sun Belt needs to make that kind of investment anymore.
Well, Texas State was good until they joined the Sun Belt, honestly, because they were 7-5 in the WAC, 6-6 their first year in the Sun Belt, and got screwed out of a bowl game. And then it just dipped once they were kind of actually in the Sun Belt fully.
I'll be interested to see if they can sustain it after GJ Kinney's coaching at Baylor or Texas Tech too, which is probably going to be pretty soon.
Creg has been dropping all this like media bombshells here.
So you don't think that's going to happen?
I don't know.
He's going to Florida.
I don't know.
I think Lane Kiffin's going to Florida. And then what? You don't think that's going to happen?
That's about right. Yeah. Now, did they fire Napier? Because I heard he was getting fired.
I don't think so, but it's
not official.
I believe.
Yeah.
It's official on the X, but it's probably not official in the real world.
Okay. I would say if he loses to Mississippi State or Central Florida, he will be fired.
Yeah.
Mississippi State. Yikes.
Yeah.
I want to lose that.
Welcome him back. Be like, come on, buddy. This is where you belong. We'll make an associate somewhere, some sort of associate.
Come hang out with your best bud, Brett Favre.
Oh,
guys,
man.
Great having y'all on to recap these first 3 weeks, talk college football.
For a very special show, right, Thibs? A very special show.
Everything that involves you, Jeremy, is special. And every time, circling back to Jay Walker, every time he sees me, he goes, "You know that, Jeremy? That's a funny some bitch."
Be able to talk to my wife and build me up.
Creg, tell the people where can they find out some more, Creg, and your coverage of the South Alabama Jaguars.
Yeah, AL.com/USA, AL.com/sports. Also do a little bit of Troy. And then I am on X at Creg Stephenson, CregStephenson. When it's on the screen right there. So there you go.
Dominic, where can people find you?
Yeah, we're pretty much Sunbelt Syndicate across the social media realm, so it should be easy. Just smash it all together. The only difference is X. The name is a little too long, so it's Syndicate. Just go with the cat logo. should be good to go.
It's like
yeah.
It's like a character in
Elon.
a cartoon character, Syndicate.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I know Elon very well. I'll talk to him about it.
There you go. Yeah. Well, just one character is all I need.
I'll give you one character.